Okay, this is a video for the ThieAudio L4. It's a latest hybrid, a single dynamic driver and 3 balanced armatures. Let me go ahead and overlay this while I'm talking to you, and I'll put it over on the video. Comparing this with the L5, which was released not that long ago, I would say that the mids are pretty much a wash. I'm not detecting any difference or any benefit of the 1BA, whether that's in the mids or in the treble. I don't know. I wouldn't want to check because that might influence where I would claim something would be better than the other. But listening to stuff that exists in the mid frequency, including Earth, Wind, Fire, September right there, I didn't really detect any difference between the two. The treble seems to be more alive, engaging, and present on the L4 than on the L5. The graph kind of reflects that. The stage relative to the treble it's giving a larger sense of space than the L5, which was not really the biggest stage monster anyway, but it's definitely sounds a little bit larger. Resolution, these two dots are not exactly in the same spot, but that's just because I did that on purpose. There's no moment like Ozzy Osbourne, actually Randy Rhoads playing D and his fingers sliding up the fretboard and on the strings and the little squeaks and the taps, or Violent Femmes, Please Do Not Go, and the pulls and the releases on the bass string, or the sticks hitting the drums on most of the tracks that I listen to. There is no real clear difference in quality. If somebody was blindfolded and said, which one has more drivers, I think it would be I don't think anybody would be able to tell with any consistency that there was one extra balanced armature in one instead of the other. The tonality for me sounds a little more natural, and I'm a fan of the Clairvoyance, so that's to be kept in mind, than the L5. I like the L4 better. The only time when the L5 sounds like it's got more something is the bass, where it doesn't graph that way, but it sounds like it's got a little bit more impact on the L5 than on the L4. Go ahead and move. This is actually the two compared. If you see the L5, it's not graphing if you line these up at 1K. It's not graphing to be bigger than the L4. Both of these are coming in very nice. And the treble on the L4 is a little more. I'll show you what they were doing. This is what the set looks like. You can follow my Twitter and take a look. I'll have some pictures put up tomorrow. There's another picture right there. They're really quite beautiful. They went with a slightly different shape and the shells seem clear. If you're asking why aren't you hitting the switches, other people can do that. I'll do that and put the graphs up, but I'm listening to stock is how it comes. This is the interesting part. This is where I think that they're polishing the brand and listening to the feedback. That's the orange is the ThieAudio Monarch, which is quite popular. It's pretty much the flagship of ThieAudio. I'm a fan of the Clairvoyance because it's got a little bit more mid-bass, but the Monarch treble's fine with me, though some people have said, tone it down just a teeny tiny bit. That's what they did with the L4. And it's got the bass, the mid-bass like the Clairvoyance, so it's like a combination of the two tribrids, and the best parts of each is by the feedback of the cash-paying owners. Not myself, not other reviewers. People that paid money and said, I wish this had a little less this or a little more that. It's kind of what they did with the L4, which again is like polishing the product instead of going off in some other direction, which I like. Perfect it, get the product, nail it down based on feedback. This is pretty much the L4 in a graph what people were saying they wanted. Whether they would take this and move it into an upcoming tribrid a few months down the road, I don't know. I guess it would depend on feedback of the L4, whether or not they would do that. But the tuning on this is actually really, really good. I'll go ahead and drop that. Listening to music. Actually, let me go back to that really quick. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, we covered it. Drop. Now we'll drop that down. Starting as I do, the first thing I'll go is I'll check Tupac, Ambitions as a Rider. Just because it's a low frequency, just check how the dynamic driver is doing. And it sounds fine. But this is the one point where I thought the L5 had a little more punch. This is fine, but I thought the L5 had a little more punch than the L4. It's the only. It doesn't reflect it on a graph, but again, that's why we listen to music and we use graphs to come to conclusions. I do anyway. To my ears, the L5 sounds like it's hitting a little harder. The L4 is doing everything fine, though. When I get to more common instruments, like the kick drum, and the stand-up bass guitar is done by John Bonham and John Paul Jones, respectively. This is the fourth album by Led Zeppelin. This is When the Levee Breaks. It's a intentionally produced, mastered, emphasized kick drum. It's got to sound like that. This is where I had a little bit of, not little problem with the Monarch, just a little bit. It was the death of this kick drum that is famous was a little bit cut off, just because of the emphasis in the sub bass and the radical drop into the mid bass prior to the mids. It was a notable event, and some people use an adapter and they're quite pleased with it. They spend $800 and they're very happy. That's kind of proof that how that works out. And then other people don't even care. But I need the kick drum done right, and it does it very good with the L4. The harmonica also sounds good in this, and it doesn't sound kind of grating and can kind of get on you. Moving over to the second album, John Paul Jones, the bassist, is coming right at you at the beginning, and it should be emphasized. And you think, well, this is automatic stuff. People know this. Well, when sets are tuned, or there's something about the driver, or there's something about something off, this might actually be the case where John Paul Jones sounds in line in a virtual stage with the other players on the stage when he's actually supposed to be front and center at the beginning. That's the way it's supposed to go. It's supposed to sound prominent. Lenny Kravitz did a great cover of this, I think, when they inducted them into the JFK Center, whatever that was. They did a really good cover of that. I'm pretty sure Kravitz did that. Anyway, this is doing the low frequency good. And if you get to something even more intense, like Massive Attack, Angel, it does fine. And it doesn't, the balanced armatures show their ass, as they say, in this track, because the dynamic drive is really tasked with all the low frequency droning, and the balanced armatures are taking care of really everything else. And it's actually a very nice track, but it needs to have the right transducers or the earphones to play it back. And some, this is just a low frequency. It's like an ASMR nothing kind of track, actually, because the bass is so blobbish. But if it's done on a set that can play it well, it's a very nice track, and it's good to be evaluating low frequency with. Marvin Gaye, stay in the low frequency because I'm in the area. Sexual Healing, track number 15 on disc 2 of Marvin Gaye Gold. The 808 Roland at the beginning, which is famous, one of the, I think, first tracks that went onto the radio and got a lot of airplay that was using that piece of equipment, which is now, I don't know how many, 40-something years old or more, or not, 80s, 90s, something like that. Very, very excellent. If you know this track, if you don't know this, when's the last time you heard Sexual Healing? If you take anything from this, you're not interested in L4, go listen to this track, man. It's fucking fantastic, especially if you got really nice gear, like headphones, like the Audio by Hi-Fi Man. This is some fucking joy. This whole album is awesome. What's Going On, Mercy, Mercy Me, Inner City Blues, You're the Man, 1 and 2, Where Are We Going, Trouble Man, Let's Get It On, Come Get to This Distant Lover, I Want You, Got to Give It Up, Angry, Ego Tripping Out, Praise, Sexual Healing. That's a nice way to spend your time listening to that. In the mid frequencies, I'm listening to Dire Straits. Let me see if I can get, I'm listening to the quality of Mark's vocals. I'm also listening to the guitar, obviously, that Mark's playing, and I'm also listening to the bassist, which sounds a little more prominent than the drummer. He's really kind of pinning down the track, but he shouldn't really be overwhelming it. He's there at the level that I expect him to be, and not more. He's not droning out the track, and he's also not too far back that it doesn't sound like he's keeping time, doing kind of his job. It sounds good. Jim Croce, operator. Croce, I said it. People jump in here. The biggest complaint. J. Where are we? Jim, right here. It's a double. It's with Don McLean. Interesting note that if you didn't know this, Tupac Shakur's favorite track ever was Vincent by Don McLean. And his mother played this for him just before he died, and they pulled the plugs and let him pass away. So I don't know if people know that, but now you do. Tupac Shakur, famous West Coast, he went to school, I think in Maryland, at an arts college. Favorite track was Don McLean. And story about him playing it on a Hollywood Boulevard on a big system, and someone driving by saying, "What are you playing, Tupac?" And he was just like, "It's my chicks. She likes this song," or something like that. But his mom played that because she knew that it was his favorite song. Jim Croce, the guitar. It's a singer on a stool with a guitar. I said Arlo Guthrie was with him, and somebody corrected me and said it was somebody else. I forget who that was. Also, I saw that the drummer that is on 50 Ways by Paul Simon is also I Got a Name. I don't know if this actually has I Got a Name on it. That might be one of the last ones he... Yeah, it's track number 2. The drummer that is on 50 Ways is the drummer that recorded on I Got a Name. I'm glad he wasn't with Jim when that plane went down, because that would have sucked. That guy was on a lot of famous stuff. So vocals sound great. Guitars sound very crystal clear and good, not in an offensive way. If I go and I listen to something like cymbals, which I am known to do, I'm listening to timestamps, 7 seconds and 13 seconds on Aerosmith. No more, no more. People hate to hear this stuff. Hey, what can I do? It's actually the same timing. It's 7 seconds and 13 seconds where the first prominent cymbal strikes come in. Cymbals are hugely important. They've got a lifespan. They're born and they die, and if the beginning is odd or the end is odd, it's notable. You can notice it because it's such a standout audio event to the ear. If it sounds anything other than what you want or find appealing, you'll note it. And I don't think anybody wants muted cymbals when it's not supposed to be muted. Like someone reached out and stopped it, but they didn't. That's because the roll-off is so substantial of the way the tuning is, or it sounds like it's just the second half of the strike when you don't actually hear the beginning of it because the area is de-emphasized on the frequency graph and the cymbals don't sound right. If cymbals don't sound right, I'm really not getting into the set. That's why you see a lot of stuff in boxes, and I never get to do them in videos because quality over quantity, and also I'm not really going to do videos for stuff that I don't like. Some people like things that I don't, and they praise it and are pushing it right now, and I'm choosing not to do videos for those items because why get in the way of other people's joy by picking it apart? What's the point? If I like it, I'll do a video, and if I don't, I didn't, and I won't. That's the way I'm trying to move through this game. I don't want to be dumping on other people's happiness. I'm using my music, coming to conclusions based on what I listen to. Let me get to... I was already there. I love Meatloaf, Bat Out of Hell. Grateful Dead, I love you, but everything sounds good on you. Meatloaf. It's an easy to spot album. Paradise by the Dashboard Light. Male singer, female singer. They're talk singing. They're almost in an operatic, the octave. They're getting way up there in their range. The pace of the song changes 3 different times during it. It's kind of like Wings, Band on the Run. There's like 3 distinct parts of the song, and it's like 3 different songs, but it's combined into one. Sounds fucking brilliant. Everything I listen to sounds good on this. Again, the only thing that I noticed, and I didn't notice it when evaluating the L4 by itself, it was that when I was comparing the L5 with the L4, it sounded like there was more punch on the L5. You look at a graph and you think it doesn't look like that. I'm telling you what I heard. And I used 2 score, and everything that had low frequency sounded like it had a little more emphasis on the L5 than the L4. For $195, I fucking wreck it. I wreck it, 1, because of its price and its sound quality, and 2, because it's made by a company that's pretty much hand-checking everything and annoying people with their long shipping times. But the payback is that when the people are getting it, I'm not seeing feedback on any forums saying, oh, my Monarch is all fucked up. It doesn't sound anything like it was described. It doesn't grab. No, there's consistency there now. So when I listen to something like this and I look at a graph, I can think this is the same thing that other people are going to get. And there's a couple items that have gone out. The Belon 01, some people are saying sounds different. I don't know if that's got to do with power, because if you look at the Belon 01 and the 3, it looks like the 01 should be easier to drive or the same. It is not. The Belon 01 needs more power. I'm telling you, it makes a huge difference. It needs more power. I can sit here. I got a dB meter. I'll put that in the next video maybe, and I'll give an example of how to my brain where they sound the same and how that reflects on a meter, because the 01 needs more power. And then the Shure tape is getting some mixed feedback. Some people are loving it. Some people think it sounds disjointed. And then I'm thinking, that sounds just like the tape. People don't remember the original, but there were people that loved it and there was people that didn't like it. And there's people that looked at the graph and said right away, I don't even want to buy it. So when you sell a lot of anything, you're going to get variety of feedback, and that goes to every set out there. So I have confidence in wrecking the L4 because of the company that makes it, and they've got a great track record. In the past, I don't know, year, they've really been nailing it down. One trip, and that triggered the whole F this, we're not going through that again, let's hand check everything. And they're doing it, and anybody that knows behind the scenes with them knows that that's actually what they're doing. So wreck the set. It's very good. It's outstanding for its price. It's probably one of the better deals you can get. The set that I'd like to compare with this would be the Manguard T, actually. But I think that's a different price range, but it's got the same kind of appeal to me, where it doesn't really step wrong in any kind of a way. But I think that's got like 8 drivers total, so I don't know if that would be fair. And this is more affordable. But that's the first set that really comes to mind, is like, what does that sound like? And also the Clairvoyance, but the treble is not done by EST, and there is a difference, and I don't think that it actually sounds like the Clair. They were going for that with tuning, and I think that was a good idea, just because it's a good idea to go with the safe feedback fed. This sounds good. Okay, what does that look like on a graph? That must be safe. It's going to be different when you use different drivers, but it is indeed a safe way to go, instead of trying crazy stuff like some companies do. That's it. I'm out. I recommend it. You guys should grab it. This is a Q-Delix. I don't even know how to pronounce it. What a badass that is. I'm doing a video for that because that's awesome. And the ES100 and a bunch of other stuff. So that'll be coming because I'm a fan and I got some ideas. You guys will see it. It'll be pretty neat. So I'm out. Bass sounds good, the mids sound great, the treble sounds good, kick drum, bass guitar, vocals, acoustic guitar, electric guitar, cymbals, hi-hats, it all sounds good. Keyboards on Boston's foreplay, it's been such a long time, it all sounds good. It's not stepping wrong. The only time where I thought there was something notable was when I was comparing bass hits between the L5 and the L4, and it sounded like the L5 had a little more punch, and that's it. But that would be offset by the more detailed perceived by the L4 because it's got a little more treble. And they're both using BAs up in the treble. It sounds quite good. And I'm out. You guys have a good one. And look forward to some videos coming up because I got some good ones and some really cool ideas. I'm gone.